to you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, let's jump into it a little bit. I have a couple of questions about just this whole process, man. I'll be honest with you. Like, as a watch guy, I'm sure we've all wanted to design our own watches and make our own watches, but there's, I'm sure, a lot more that goes into it than just, hey, I got an idea, I want to throw on some paper and then make it. You know what I mean? A lot that we probably don't even realize, right? So can you talk a little bit about the whole process behind it all, just in your own terms?
So I guess really when I've always been one to want to have something of my own. And so I always just wanted to like try and do something. So as a kid, there's a cartoon, Doug. He had his own shoe. Yeah. And I remember he drew it on paper and it came to life. So I tried to do that as a kid. Like, I can't do this. But that thought always stuck with me. Like, I could one day try and do this. And so when it came down to like making one, it was just kind of easy for me to just say, okay, I'm going to give this a shot and, find a manufacturer and this, that, and the other, because I could draw my own styles and designs. So I draw all of my work and then I would just present it to a manufacturer. And I finally found one after about 2 years, trial and error, about 2 years, found one that suited me. And then I just kind of worked with them. I told them what I wanted. This is the design. This is the kind of the idea behind it, because I was really green coming into it. I didn't really know too much about the watch industry aside from my dad, my grandfather being really big collectors. And they really are the ones that brought me into the world of watches and horology. And so I was like, well, I could design it. And as long as I know the mechanism is reliable, then that's really all that matters. As long as it's reliable, it's sturdy, it works. I'll put my design and creative, attitude to it and come out with some. So that's kind of really how it all came about with me.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, let's talk about your dad and your grandpa for a second. You said they got you into watches. Were they collectors themselves? Did they also make watches? Were they just avid hobbyists? How did they instill that love in you?
Big time collectors. Like, you're talking about individually, each of them maybe had about 100 pieces.
Oh, wow.
And so, when my dad was 25, my grandfather gave him a solid gold watch. And I'm my dad's namesake. So he gave that to me at 25. So that's something that I'm passing down as well. But so they were really big collectors, and not necessarily in like names, like say, okay, I only get Rolex, I only get Omega, but whatever they saw that caught the eye, that's what they bought. Even, the lesser known brands, if it was beautiful to them, that's what they did. And that's really kind of what was passed down to me. Like, don't be so heavy on the name, but if it speaks to you, if you like it, if it looks good to you, that's what you get. And you don't anything else dictate, your style and your liking. Like, if you like it, then you go with it. So that's kind of how they got me into it, just because they were really big time collectors themselves, a business owner. So they always wore suits and a nice suit goes with a watch goes with a nice suit. So that's really kind of where I took it. And that's kind of my design aesthetics when it comes to like just the look of everything. It's really more luxury, a luxurious look that you can wear with a suit, but you can still kind of, wear it down if you really want to. Because a lot of times, the watch is really the highlight of the outfit for most men. And so, I don't care. I'll wear a t-shirt and shorts, but look at my watch though. And that's kind of where I'm at,
Beautiful. I can dig it.
Yeah.
So with that all being said, then I was reading your About page, and it said that you started off, and you mentioned it a minute ago, you started off young sketching up watches. Can you talk to me what some of those early kind of sketches and schematics looked like compared to your design language now?
Really? I don't know. You know what? I guess you would say more playful, because I also like to sketch a lot of cartoons and like Marvel cartoons and stuff like that. And so, Marvel was more playful, I guess you could say, in the sense of it all, and artwork and stuff. But I remember the first watch I had was a relic. My dad got it for me when I was really young. It had a nice blue dial, silver case, black leather strap, and so that was kind of the idea when I first got started. Is that type of aesthetic? Just I'm not gonna say plain, but not crazy detail oriented. But then as I like really got into it, I'm like, you know what? I want to pay attention to like the small details, because I think that really is what kind of tells a lot, or a good amount of like the storytelling aspect of it. Like, okay, well, how did you come up with this little detail right here that I can kind of explain it, and it all fits into the grand scheme of the entire piece itself, and then that's gonna have a win.
Beautiful. So I noticed, and I listened to your, I can't remember what the name of the series was. I was listening to one of your YouTube series, and you were talking about some of your design language and how you used a skeleton movement, and then you put different dials on top of it, so you could use the exhibition back to show the skeleton, and then you use the open hearts to show the skeleton. How important is that kind of open transparency there in your personal design language?
I think it really gives more personality to the piece. And so as I design, I try to put my own, the series you're talking about is from my brain to your wrist. And so that's really what I wanted to try kind of give, is like a glimpse into the mind of, the designer, the creator, like, okay, the open heart aspect of it, the open case back and everything. This is all it all worked in together. It's like, the inside of a person, right? That's really who you are. And that's really kind of how the timepieces speak is the inside. This is what the piece is about. And then the dial and everything like that, it all comes in together, and it all kind of tells a story, or tells like a kind of like I guess a time period or whatever of kind of where I was at. Again, I was in the finance industry at the time, and I just wanted it to really be classy, but kind of have a real unique, piece to it as well. Where, okay, man, I could see the bounce wheel moving and everything like that. That's interesting. Then you see the checkerboard on it. So now you got a play of light onto it, as well as seeing the balance wheel. And then it's just like so many things kind of come together and work together, and it all just fit really nicely.
Beautiful. I love it. As much as I'm into specs, honestly, the design aspect is really what drew me into watches. And I like how, honestly, like abstractly you speak about the whole concept of everything. So with that being said, the word verdure means strength. How do you interpret that in the context of like your wristwatch line?
So when it comes to strength, I believe that I come from a line of trailblazers, people that just kind of did things just that were out of the ordinary for, where I came from and how we grew up. And so everybody that I know, my family, my dad, grandfather, my aunts, even my mom, were just really different. And so in order to really, I guess, sustain that uniqueness, you have to have a certain level of strength, because there's going to be a lot of, barriers and even some setbacks. But if you are really, if you really want something, you're going to, do as best as you can to make it happen. So you have to have a level of strength to that. And that's really what the brand speaks of, as the watch industry is saturated with so many different brands and so many different styling. But I wanted to try to be as unique as possible, just to really solidify my place in the industry, and being one of strength. And I think that's really important, to really be strong when it comes to breaking the mold and being a trailblazer and doing different things in a very big industry.
Fair enough. I mean, your wristwatch, for men especially, says a lot about you, I feel, about your own personal reflections of yourself, Absolutely. How you value your time. And right. So, honestly, that was an amazing answer. With all that being said, though, what would you view as more important than the movement mechanics or the case and dial aesthetics? And how do you prioritize these things when you go about designing for your collections?
Right. So for me, because I'm big into art, for me, art speaks first. If it catches the eye first, then okay, cool. Now let's talk about what's inside, and is it reliable? So absolutely, your mechanics and your movements are extremely important. So I was like, you know what? As long as it's reliable, it's sturdy, it tells, it's accurate, I'm good with that. Now let me add my level of design and creativity on top of it to make the movement even, speak even louder and be even more interesting and better. So now let me put my creative juices on the design aesthetics and then the design language of it. So I'll grab all of my inspiration from all over the place, just to kind of bring it all together, from the movement, and then the design and aspects of the case and everything like that. And with the dial and everything, it's been the strap. to the crown, to the hands, to everything, speaks to it. So me personally, I love the design aesthetics of it. And then, okay, this is beautiful and the movement is reliable, it's accurate, it's sturdy. Okay, cool. I'm sold, that type of thing.
100%. What honestly attracted me, and like I noticed, I think the first time we spoke was actually about the mechanism that attaches your strap to your case. How you said it's designed after pocket watches. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love the whole setup there. It draws attention, but in the best way possible. You know what I mean? I'm not too exertly there. Absolutely, I love it.
Appreciate
it. No, 100%. So with all that being said, then let me ask you kind of a weird question. If you had the ability to build a watch without any restraints at all, financial, movement, manufacturing, anything like that. And maybe even, I know you said earlier you were into comic books, maybe you would want to draw some design influence from there or something. What would your ideal watch look like? And would you do it under the Verdure name, or would you do it kind of under like a sub brand?
Ooh, so that's a great question. My favorite complication right now is the tourbillon, but then I do also like a minute repeater. If I could do that all together, that would be crazy.
That would be
right. Yeah. And it's funny you say the like a sub brand, because when I hear sub brand, I think of like Ralph Lauren and Purple Label, or maybe even the Rolex and the Cellini line. I think I would keep it under Verdure, but I would have like a separate tier for it. Kind of like the Verdure, I don't know, something, Verdure something, something like that. And then when it comes to designing, I actually have, and maybe I can share it with you actually. I actually have this one tourbillon design where it's not your average, it's not a round case. It's kind of like cut off. So it's round, but then it's like an unorthodox rectangle, if you will.
Okay.
And I have a concept of shattered masterpiece. So it's a sapphire crystal dial, and it looks like the dial looks like it's shattered. So where the tourbillon mechanism is, you see it look like a shattered piece of glass, and then it kind of like spider webs out. And it looks like the number markers, the hour markers are shattered as well. But there's like a level of, it's like a different, the numbers are kind of different. Look like it kind of gives you like I guess the numbers are more pronounced more so.
Okay.
And so the concept behind it is a shattered masterpiece. So everybody is, has our own quirks to us, if you will, but it all makes us who we are, and it's a masterpiece. And so that is like my ideal and my favorite design, which I'm going to come out with sometime, but that's really my kind of my favorite design style and idea right there.
That sounds phenomenal. I'll be honest with you. If you have any sketches, you should definitely email them to me. I would love to.
I definitely will.
Be honest with you, man. That sounds awesome. I'm trying to personally kind of branch out a little bit. So when it comes to collecting, I'm really very predictable chronographs, dive watches, very boring, safe. You know what I mean? It's just my wardrobe is just so like bland out there. Like I'm trying to divert out a little bit, and I'm not gonna lie, that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you. Yeah.
Honestly, man, your Journeyman GNT too. I'm in love with that thing. I'll be honest with you. That is a phenomenal watch. I was actually looking at it when I was doing the sound check and everything, and just style wise with the globe on there. I'm not normally a big fan of the globe on GMTs, but it's just your style design is very up my alley. I just
nice
to be honest, my man.
Nice, thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about some like manufacturing and growth stuff. So, when it comes to watches, again, a lot of us, and I get into little nitty-gritty arguments with people all the time in comment sections. When it comes to the manufacturing side of things, I really think there's a lot that most of us enthusiasts don't really understand or know. I feel like it's easy to get behind a camera and talk crap about something when you don't understand like why some of these decisions were made. You know what I mean? So like, how do you get your watches into the hands of like customers and advocates? Do you partner with influencers? Do you host collabs? Do you really push your website? I saw that you have like an email subscription. How do you go about branching out that's not just simply like TikTok and that kind of social media?
Yeah, so having a newsletter is important just to kind of bring the community aspect behind it. Now, I'm looking, especially within the next year, the new year, is to kind of try and host some events. I'm getting ready to work with a couple people to kind of help me bring that to life, just to, bring the community in and have people feel like even more a part of everything, as well as pushing the website. Like you said, you have your average, social media stuff, but I do want to start doing some nice collabs. There's so many out there and so many brands are doing it, but trying to find a more of a unique way to do it. I just try to, be as different, but not push the envelope too much. But that's really how I push it now is, say interviewing, doing interviews with individuals like yourself, doing some different reviews, having people review and everything like that, just to get the name out there a little bit more, kind of, giving like a real personal feel for it, where as you don't just see an ad and, obviously you're talking about all the great things, but people are open to, able to be as honest as possible on their idea of it and, or on their experience handling it. And so that's really what I want to do again is, to bring more community into it, be, transparent, and have people really see how it looks on a day-to-day wear, so that's really kind of how we do things.
Beautiful. And that makes a lot of sense. And actually, but not to sidetrack, but at Watch John told me to tell you hello. By the way,
man, John,
you don't talk about beautiful.
Yes,
he's cool people. I jump on his live, but he told me to tell you hi. So hello.
Thank you. Tell him I said hey.
I definitely will. He'll watch the interview. He's excited. Cool. I didn't tell a lot of people, but I did tell him that we were going to do this, so he seemed excited. So
cool.
Beautiful. But well, with your watches being priced roughly 500 to I think 3,500 with the Journeyman now, right?
Right.
How do you maintain quality while staying accessible compared to other higher end brands?
How do I maintain quality? I try to, the idea that I have is, anything that I put out there, it has to be something that I would absolutely wear if I was, on the consumer end of it. And so it's not about, just throwing something out there just so people can buy, but I really take my time in, curating the right materials and just everything just so it's, presentable and something that is beautiful and wearable, something that someone would really enjoy wearing. And so with that being said, when it comes to pricing, I try to keep that in mind as well, because, you can have your top tier materials that, are premium prices, but then you can also have some that are not as top tier, but that are still beautiful and where it is still work in between that budget and in between that accessible, that accessible area where it's like, I say it's like accessible luxury, where you can, it's not a crazy and an exorbitant amount of money, yet it's still something that you would really say, I'm putting my hard-earned money to this. I know I'm going to like it, and it's going to be something that I can really wear and keep wearing for a long time. So that's kind of how I do it.
Beautiful. You know what? I can totally dig it. I want to kind of circle back to something you said earlier when we were speaking about you getting started. You said it took you about 2 years of going through different manufacturers before you found one you landed on. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that? Is it because of case materials? Is it because of minimum numbers? How did all of that technically work, especially when you're getting started? Do these companies look at you and be like, okay, you have to buy 400 of these if we're going to work with you? Or, how does that process kind of develop?
Yeah, so there is a minimum, right? And so I didn't want to just have one colorway of it. I wanted to kind of have a bit of a variety just for people that like one thing and don't like another thing or something like that. So when it came to the manufacturer, there was kind of like, I guess because I was a newcomer, and I guess you could kind of they could kind of tell that I was a newcomer. So all right, this guy's not that serious. So it took me a little bit of time, and then I'll be honest with you, I almost wanted to give up because it was taking so long. But I was like, man, I just can't give up. Like, I really want to do this. Mm-hmm. And so I finally found one, and they were giving me the color options and things like that. And I was like, okay, I think I found it. So having the minimum order quantity is something that you have to always, be prepared for. But if they are willing to work with you in terms of like your color coordinations and your color combinations and allow for it to all be inside that one order quantity number, then that's something like, okay, I could work with that. So that's really what allowed me to be like, okay, cool. This is what I'm going to go with. They're very fair. Everything is good in terms of the communication. And so, you know what? Let's do this.
Fair enough. Now, so do you get most of the components from the same manufacturer? Are they doing the case and the dial, or are you doing the dials outsourced to a different company, or does it depend on the line, for example?
Yeah, so most of the time it is through the same people, but they have their vendors who strictly produce, let's say, bezels or, inserts and stuff like that, whatever. And so they kind of do that lifting for you or for me, unless I say, listen, I want this from these people here. Everything else, you're free to kind of get for me as long as the quality is, top notch and up to my standards. Like, I was currently in talks with a movement maker that I was working with aside from my manufacturer. And so I'm just like, listen, I want to go with you guys in terms of the movements. However, I do have a manufacturer and, they can do everything else from that point forward. So that's kind of really how it works.
Okay, that's really cool and interesting.
Yeah.
When it comes to the whole again manufacturing side of things, like let's talk about the dials for example. You said that they can either outsource out or you can let them kind of decide for you. So you would say you have a lot of trust in these manufacturers, and if you're optioning to give them this kind of control over resources, right?
Right.
Would you say? I'm sure they sent you samples. Were the samples
Yes.
spot on to the quality that they're producing?
Yes. And so with that, when you work with certain manufacturers, they most of the time they have a good amount of time in the industry. And so sometimes I'll let you know who they work with, sometimes they won't. But when you realize who they work with, okay, I've heard of them, I know them, they have quality. So you must know what you're doing. So it's almost like, I'm one of those people where if I'm working with someone that's an expert in a certain field, I say, listen, this is what I want. I trust you because this is your field of expertise. So whatever you feel is right, do that, but stay in these bounds that I'm giving you. And so that's kind of really how it works. It is definitely a level of trust, which is why they send you their samples. And if it's not up to par, then you're like, okay, let's do something else. Let's go elsewhere. However, most of the time they get it right on. As long as you communicate exactly what you want, then they're able to do what it is that you want. And so that makes life a lot easier.
Beautiful. I mean, realistically, I know they get a bad rap, but most manufacturers really have it down to a science now at this point. Even some of the cheaper watches, like I'm going to use San Martin. I know they're getting a little bit more expensive now, but I mean, if you look at the quality of those mass-produced watches, it's kind of surprising sometimes at the price point which you can find. So
Right.
that's definitely really interesting. Well, with that being said, then you were founded in 2011 or 12? 12?
12. 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, what's your growth path kind of been since then? Number of employees, models released, distribution channels? Do you have any international presence?
So funny, man. I started fresh out of college. 2012, I was still in college, actually, getting the ideas together. And I just, opened, created the business. And then that 2 year period I talked about with finding a manufacturer, then 2015, is when I came up with the first line of Premier Collection. And from there up until now, it was really just kind of like a side thing. I was in the finance industry, as I mentioned, and I just wanted to have something that spoke to finance and moving up in the ranks and being seen as a top tier guy in that industry, the finance industry. And so my design language, it kind of morphed from like the Premier Collection is my only quartz mechanism, to now everything being mechanical, automatic, things like that. And so it just really turned into growing from just playing around and just seeing what I could come up with in the first one to now being more detail oriented and more what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of more focused on details and how everything looks and how everything all comes together with the mechanism, with the dial, with the case, even with the strap, and how everything was all come together. So I really would say that I've been able to refine just kind of my styling and also going from just kind of trial and error to having concepts of what I'm trying to communicate in a specific design. It's not just putting something together anymore. It's I'm really thinking of an idea and a concept and how to bring it to life into something that you can wear. And so that's really the kind of the growth in terms of design and styling. In terms of distribution, I do have a small presence, in internationally in terms of Europe. I have a couple of things out on the continent of Africa, and I'm really just trying to grow and expand and really be, international brand. And so, working with different people that have reach in these areas, or know the right people in the world of horology, and kind of the boutiques, the big, luxury boutiques and everything like that. And then also kind of building a team together. So it is just me, but I do outsource some other things to other individuals and other companies, if you will. And so really kind of communicating to them where I want to take the brand to, and how to go about it, but also giving them the kind of the freedom of doing it their way, but still, like I mentioned, staying in the bounds of what I'm telling them. And so that's really where I'm at now. I've made some contact with some movement makers, some people that are able to kind of help me tell my story a little bit more detailed, and kind of intimately, and really grab a hold of the consumer, to not only just be like a one-off thing, but really have a community and make you feel like a part of it, make you really immerse yourself into the story of the brand, and also myself, and kind of my idea behind the brand and where I came from and how the brand is moving forward in that. And again, yeah, just moving forward in terms of partnering with different people, doing different collabs, really trying to get deeper into the boutique scene and getting into some really big boutiques and things like that, and really establishing the brand as luxury. I had a billboard in Times Square. I had two of them actually, and it was right on the corner, and it was just like, man, okay, this is what the brand is going to be. So that's kind of really what I'm working towards it being.
Beautiful. I didn't know that this was more or less a one-man show. That's honestly even more impressive, to be honest with you. Especially since I see you doing like traveling and doing shows and stuff. That's a lot to juggle.
It is. Yeah.
I kind of have three questions kind of that I caught from your answer there. That was a very elaborate answer, which I love. The first one is, well, I know you have a history in finance, and I couldn't find much information on this when I did my research on you beforehand, but I know that you did some coursework at the Gemological Institute of America.
Yes.
If you want to talk about that a little bit, and are you going to introduce any type of gemstones or anything to your designs coming in? I know you said you have some crazy ideas in mind, so is that something incorporated here soon?
100%. So yeah, I took, I have an AJP diploma from the GIA, which means I can run a jewelry store. And so what I wanted to do was combine watches along with jewelry, and have like kind of like a Verdure line of jewelry, some fine jewelry and things like that. But when it comes to watches, I do have another tourbillon design that I have to share with you as well. It is the concept was let there be light. And so I had like, from kind of like your regular clear diamonds all the way down to canary diamonds and everything in between it. So it was kind of like
light spectrums.
Yeah, exactly, like a light spectrum. So going from clear, brilliant clear, all the way to canary, and showing everything in between, with the tourbillon in the center of it, right? And so I definitely am going to have some gemstones in there, with some diamonds, as well as I want to do rubies and emeralds too. Just sapphires, so really kind of putting that that certificate to use, and showing like, okay, yes, I am in the watch industry, but also my background in gems, and being, part of the GIA, if you will. That is going to show forth in the designs and creative as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Honestly, that light spectrum design would be really cool on a tennis necklace. I don't know why that. When you thought of tennis diamonds, that would be beautiful. Honestly, it'd be a really interesting matching set. Hey, I can. Yes. The boutique scene. You were talking about trying to get into that a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit how that goes? Is it as kind of cliquey as like ADs and that kind of stuff? Would you say it's kind of weird to kind of step into, or do they seem to be pretty inviting? Or are they kind of weird about what's the word I'm looking, mainstream brands?
Yeah, it is very cliquey. at least from what I've seen. But I will say that if you can establish a relationship with one of the boutique managers, that might serve better because they may have an ear to corporate to say, hey, listen, I got this piece here. Somebody came in and they asked about it, they inquired about it, or they sent me a sample and it's beautiful. We should probably look into that, because everybody's looking to be different. There's so many different boutiques out there. So if you can come with a good product, something that's good enough that would say, listen, maybe we should take a chance on this and be ahead of the curve, because if we can say that we were the first to gravitate to this and bring this in, that would make us be seen as more innovative and more welcoming to new things and newer ideas, because there's like a whole new industry, or it's not industry, but a whole new generation of watch collectors that are, coming on the scene, and catering or speaking to that group would really do wonders, especially going forward, going down the line years later, because now you have the trust of these people and with your establishment. So I guess you really have to try to find your way in and find who you can speak to in terms of someone being open to just talking to you and even wanting to review one of your pieces or see one of your pieces. That's really what I've seen. And I have something that I have a couple of things that are in the works that I want to, send out to them. And I found a couple contacts, so I'm just waiting to really do that and see how it works. I think it's going to work out pretty well because they were very open to it. They were like, man, I really appreciate you even wanting to have my opinion on it, and to me, that says a lot too, because a lot of these, these heritage brands, they don't really care about your opinion. They're heritage. So it's like, listen, I'm coming to you and you need to say yes. Whereas somebody, such as myself, because you don't, I guess being that I'm the owner and the creator of it, it's a little bit more intimate, and I guess more, I'm trying to make you a part of this, or I really want your opinion because, as a creator, as the owner, I value you because you're in the industry, you're there already, and I'm trying to get into your establishment. So I think it serves as making a good introduction and establishing a good relationship, a good rapport with them, and, seeing how it could work.
Fair enough. That all makes perfect sense. It's one of those, once you get your foot in the door, you're kind of golden situations.
Exactly.
Real quick, I did just get a notice saying that my Zoom meeting is going to close out in a couple of minutes. So if we disappear, okay, I'll send you an invite right back. Sounds good. In case I just disappear, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Beautiful. But with all that being said, then, so with still trying to work with boutiques and whatnot, and I noticed you also said there's a new generation of watch enthusiasts coming in. Would you say you're noticing younger clientele starting to enter the watch market, or is this still kind of a middle-aged man kind of thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely still heavy in terms of the middle-aged gentleman, but it definitely is. There are younger people that are coming on the scene because you hear, especially like in pop culture and music and everything like that, you hear a lot about these watches and everything. And so I guess they want to see what it's all about. And, everybody that's into watches, once you get a taste of it, it's like, man, I got to keep on coming back, and so, that's just
from it out.
Exactly. And so, there's definitely a younger crowd that is looking to buy pieces. I have a lot of younger people saying, hey, when I get my hands on some money, I want to patronize and spend some on some of your pieces. I love your pieces, but once I get there, I'm gonna have one. So hey, please do.
And reachable aspiration. No, that's great. That's honestly a really good position to be in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. With that being said, it's doing a countdown, so I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting, and then I'm going to send you an invite right back to another one real quick, okay?
Sounds good. Yes, sir.
I appreciate you, my man.
All right. Yes.